I wanted to figure out once and for all what the most beloved boss was in Hollow Knight, and so over the last 2 months we've been holding community polls to find out just that. You guys have now voted on every boss in the game, based on a mix of gameplay, visuals and overall fun. And now I've gathered all of that data, converted it into a score, and ordered every single boss from most hated to most loved. Each of the tiers would be assigned a value, and for each 1% of the votes towards that tier, points would be awarded. This also had the added value of giving a better overall picture instead of only just looking at the bosses with the highest amount of S votes. So here's what each tier was worth for every 1%. S tier was worth 4 points, A tier was worth 3 points, B tier was worth 2 points, C tier was worth 1 point, and finally F tier was worth 0 points. This means the highest possible score would be 400 points if 100% of the votes were for S tier, and of course the lowest would be 0 if all votes were F tier. In the event there was a tie, the boss with the higher number of votes would get the higher ranking. Now that you know how the scoring works, join me as we count down Hollow Knight's most loved bosses. Starting us off, we have Uumuu with 80 points. Unfortunately, that also earns them the medal for least popular boss in the game. Considering this was the lowest scoring boss, the comments were fairly kind here. Fanbit3516 says, give it an S because Quirrell was there. Lucky Luke 31813 says, depends on which version. Normal fight, B tier. God Home fight, F tier. To me, it seems like everyone just enjoys the presence of Quirrell, which is fair enough. Up next, and only trailing slightly behind with 83 points, we have Winged Nosk. Unfortunately, Winged Nosk wins the award for least improved variant, scoring 106 points, lower than its base form. Matthew Grobel 5587 says, it's a reskin Vengefly King. And Skiv5 says, easiest F of my life. There also seems to be a lot of complaints about its hitboxes, which probably hurt its score overall. Moving up just a little, we have Markoth with 86 points. Markoth also wins the medal for highest percent of F tier votes of any boss. Obviously you guys hold a grudge for the nightmare that is Radiant Markoth, and the comments confirm just that. DNDG210 says, the normal fight is actually pretty good, but the Radiant fight, my god, whoever decided to remove the floor needs to be fired. On the other side we have Boogeyman Gaming who says, honestly, good boss, and as a non-God Home player, I don't have PTSD. Up next in our 50th position, and quite a jump in score compared to these three, we have Oblobbles with 101 points. Foolish Spud says, if you asked me this question 3 days ago, I would have said that they were a high C tier, whatever boss. But since then I started attempts for beating them on Radiant, and because of that, I say they deserve to burn in hell along with Radiant Markoth, F tier. At number 49, we have No Eyes with 107 points. So what did the people say about this one? My fellow Hollow Knight YouTuber Masker says, normal is alright, Ascended or Radiant is hell. The Ghost of Hallownest says, Bullet Hell using her Hellspawn lands her an F for me. With 110 points, Vengefly King finds itself at number 48. GC9320 says, one of the only individuals capable of killing Zote the Mighty. Truly a worthy opponent. At 47, we have Flukemarm with 113 points. Sans is cool for real, left a comment simply saying smash in all caps. Moving on. At number 46, we have Aldahu, with a small jump in points to 122. Our local Sharp Shadow enjoyer, Roy33, commented Aldahu, which has no bearing at all on anything, but it had a lot of upvotes and I'm a sucker for bad puns, so I thought I better include it. Abodi329 on the other hand says it's the worst Dream Warrior, even worse than Markoth. At number 45 we have Marmu, who obviously wasn't so good at bargaining after all, only scoring 126 points. A7med EGG says, no matter how many times you try, you'll always miss that one nail swing, so F tier, which I can certainly relate to. Moving up just a little, we have Gruz Mother with 129 points in our 44th position, and also winning the medal for highest percentage of C tier votes. Victor Indum 895 says, it's a good mini-boss that's just dragged to C because it's a mini-boss. Base slamming is fun, the baby explosion is a cool surprise, and the Ascended version has a neat twist to make it harder, but obviously still not super hard. It's still a very simple and meh looking early game mini-boss though. At number 43 we have Soul Warrior with 134 points. Ike Gaming 18 says, I swear he's the most forgettable boss. Every time I do a Pantheon I completely forget he's in it, not a boss. Massive Moss Charger pulls ahead by 1 point for a total of 135 points. This makes it the highest rated boss with the majority of F votes, and also walks away with the Polarizing Award for having a high amount of votes in both S and F tier. WD Gaster says, I love them. They're massive, they're moss, they charge. S tier. And on the other end of the spectrum, we have Sparks312, who says, the boss literally only requires like 20 nail hits max, and you don't even have to move. Plus, it's just a moss charger, but bigger. Not very creative, so I'ma give this boss an F. Completely understandable. At number 41, we have Brooding Mawlek. Again, a small jump in score going up to 146. Twilight Silver 6230 says, I like Mawlek, and it's not terrible, but it's too simple. C tier. Great boss to start a Steel Soul run though. At number 40 is Crystal Guardian, scoring 150 points. Luip11913 says, bottom tier. Far too easy, only boss that's never hit me on any playthrough. And we jump up a bit now in score to 163 points, and at number 39 sits God Tamer. Sadly, this duo gets the medal for lowest voter turnout of a non-modded boss at only 556 voters. GedGas6905 says, bro only got 2 attacks. At number 38, and only a few slots higher than its base variant, we have Enraged Guardian, also with 163 points. Samuel Kerr 4912 says, barely changes from the original. If you can beat Crystal Guardian, then you can beat Enraged Guardian. Another small jump in score later, we find ourselves at what is for me one of the most forgettable bosses in the game, Galien, sitting at 183 points in the 37th position. The Orthodox seems to agree with me, saying, very forgettable dream boss, so it has to be a C tier. Nosk takes out the 36th position with 189 points, a respectable score, but I did expect them to be a bit higher. Daily Hydration says, absolutely fantastic and underrated sound design, especially the suspenseful music as Nosk first appears. Also, thanks for reminding me to drink some water. Xero is up next, and lucky for them, they scored higher than their namesake, with a respectable 199 points. End Time Anointing 5283 says, I hate this guy. He always doesn't seem that hard until I lose all my lifeblood in the Pantheons because of his stupid arena. And the first to break 200 points is the Collector with 210 points and snagging position 34 in the list. Antimateriatum 6494, I hope I said your name right, says, somehow it's an S tier for me. The music, the atmosphere, just everything overall made him one of my favourite bosses. Position 33 belongs to none other than Hive Knight with 226 points. I'll admit I might have impacted the result of this one with my B puns, but on a completely unrelated note, Hive Knight also won the medal for highest percent of B tier votes. Joe Laugh the Mighty says, this fight was unbelievable. Not going to give my real name says, jokes aside, I actually think B tier is what I would have put him in. He has a lot of potential to be an amazing boss, but there's a lot of problems. Not to be outknighted, we have the False Knight with 227 points. Tea Time 13th says, I'd say A tier. Great introduction to Tells, and has really good music. I also love the idea of this imposing knight turning out to be a maggot. Smiley face. At number 31, we have Traitor Lord scoring 236 points. Kelvin Pell 1738 says, I really like the rhythm of this fight. It has this constant aggression that very few of the bosses have, so it's a nice change of pace in the Pantheons. And he's probably one of the easiest late game bosses to do hitless, so that's always a satisfying thing for me to strive for during Pantheons. Entering our top 30 with the biggest jump in points so far, we have Gorb with 261 points. Gorb gets the Small Fish Big Pond award by being the lowest scoring boss that had majority S tier votes. Orca2964 says, anyone who dares to put something other than S tier is not worthy of ascending with Gorb. Stainslaw Kitoix918 says, actually, unironically, truthfully, one of the more fun Dream Warriors to fight. At number 29, we have Watcher Knights with 267 points. End Time Anointing 5283 says, I love these little guys so much. Fun to fight, look adorable, their fight is chaos in the best way, and it's always a nice break when I see them in the Pantheon. Moving on, we have Failed Champion with 272 points and winning the award for Most Improved Boss Variant with 45 points more than its base version. End Time Anointing 5283 once again says, amazing boss, good upgrade in difficulty while still being fun. Always appreciate battling him in P5 since he saves my ass against Nightmare King Grim. GadGus6905 nails it and says one of the better upgrades to a boss fight. At our 27th spot, we have none other than Grey Prince Zote, with yet another tiebreaker decided by total votes, which ended in Zote's favour. Zote also gets the Polarizing Award, with a large portion of votes being split between both S and F tiers. but in a way that's almost directly opposite of Massive Moss Charger. He also gets the Buzz Award for having the most amount of commenters of any poll, with a total of 47 comments. Toasterfly6581, with probably one of the funniest comments I saw, says, "This boss fight feels like getting lobotomized and makes me regret saving Zote every playthrough." Iron Challenger says, and he's nailed it, "There are two types of people in the world, those who absolutely despise Grey Prince Zote, and those who absolutely love him." This also takes us to the halfway mark, so if you've made it this far, why not help me out by subscribing and giving us a like so you won't miss out on any future content. Now, with that out of the way, let's proceed on to number 26, which is none other than Soul Master, scoring 280 points. Samuel Kerr 4912 says, "Just a fun fight overall, not as gimmicky as you would feel, and the reward is amazing. Plus, the fake out jump scare is always funny." At position 25, we have Broken Vessel with 281 points. Oliver Shaw 5681 says, "This boss is way too underrated. He's not the hardest, but the amount of fun I had with this boss is unimaginable. I think I like him a little too much." Hornet Protector is up next with 285 points. Ritter 3723 says, "The character is great and having her fight you twice is cool, but her second fight is so much better." Up next we have Soul Tyrant with 286 points. Ali Khan Balan 985 says, "As a person who struggled and was frustrated with Soul Master on my first playthrough, I love that fight too by the way, when I first fought it, it was a blast. I kept trying again and again while enjoying every part of it. It's an easy S for me." Naa124 says, "I really like this boss, my second favourite dream boss. It deserves way more recognition than any other boss." One of my personal favourites, Oro Mato, placed 22nd with a score of 288, and also nabs the award for highest percent of A tier votes. User ET5TF2BC1S says, "Jesus. God tier, great boss fight, amazing story with characters, and so much more." Blades Demave repeats that sentiment and says, "Absolutely amazing. Good boss fight, but Mato as a character is top tier." Breaking into the 300s with 304 points, we have White Defender. Mary Haddock 9618 says, "Biggest S tier possible. The music, the atmosphere, the flow, and especially the lore is what makes it my favourite boss in the game." Surprisingly, followed by the base variant Dung Defender with 2 points more at 306 and breaking into our top 20. The Flameslayer says, "Amazing fight the first time. Brilliant lore, love the design, and the character Ogrim is one of my favourites ever. S." Sly is up next with 308 points. N. Skorensky says, "This is my favourite boss in the game. A fight that really makes you dash and jump all over the place, and is very fast paced. Very fun. Also, the fact that I find nail arts to be the best way to do this fight is just poetic." Lostkin snags the 18th spot with a score of 310. B. Richards says, "Fun fight. Sad lore, great reward. Just not perfect like some late game bosses. A tier." Paintmaster Sheo surpasses his master with 316 points. Samuel Kerr 4912 says, "The paint letting you know which attack was about to come is such a nice detail, and really felt like a clean end to P2. Yashvad Hanraju 8052 says, "He'd be an S tier if he wasn't so easy. You can literally tank him and beat him. He's such a creative boss fight. I love the different colours to different attacks. A high A tier for me." At number 16 we have Hornet Sentinel with 320 points. This was a close second for most improved variant, scoring 35 points more than the base version. Hey You from that game says, "Hornet Sentinel is where I started to get good." The 1 Terra 2 legend says, "F, she jumps randomly." But seriously, this is one of the best challenges in the game and a cool fun hard boss. The first and lowest ranked of the Pale Court bosses, we have Kindly Isma with 339 points. The plants shooting seeds at you can be pretty annoying, so I reckon that's why it scored a bit lower than the rest. Despite that though, it's still an amazing fight, and the Flaming Slayer agrees, saying this, "I feel like all the Pale Court bosses should go in S tier. They're just so well crafted and made." And Samuel Kerr 4912 says, "A really unique fight. Arena traps, border shrinks, choreographed attacks, S tier." Up next, and another Pale Court boss, we have Mysterious Ze'mer with 343 points. Trex9600 says, "I love all Pale Court bosses, but Ze'mer by far is my favourite one." Jumping back to the base game and probably losing a few points due to being so damn hard, we have Absolute Radiance at the 13th spot with 345 points. Just a Guy 9215 says, "Incredible boss, but the attacks can be hard to see on the background sometimes, which can be a pain." Lucky Luke 31813 says, "Although it is S tier in my opinion, there are many bosses I like more. So for me personally, I'd be a very low S tier placement." Next up we have a Pale Court boss, voiced by the legend himself, Mossbag. It's mighty Hegemol in the 12th spot, scoring 351 points. The Frost Wizard Gamer 1555 says, great design, almost tuned to perfection. The only thing that's bad about him is the fact the devs didn't consider adding attacks oriented to counter pogos. With only one more point, we have Fierce Dryya, another Pale Court boss with 353 points. FIFO1945 says, genuinely my favourite boss in Hollow Knight. She's just so great, even her soundtrack is S tier. And now, finally, entering our top 10 bosses of Hollow Knight as voted by you guys, we have the one, the only, the Radiance with 354 points. It seems like the infection was working its magic because we're also giving out the award for the highest voter turnout with 919 votes. Small One-Eyed King says, the first time fighting the Radiance, it felt like fighting God. Like you're challenging the heavens and making me wonder, are we the bad guys? Next up with 355 points and securing the 9th spot, we have the one, the only, the arena brawler himself, Tiso. The Orthodox says, S tier, even though his health pool is so tiny. He's so pompous. In the 8th place, we have Mystic Ze'mer with 357 points. Tea Time 13th says, S tier all the way, the only boss I really struggle with still to beat on Radiant due to the amount of variation she has on her attacks. And I'm the one who studied her for 10 hours to make a wiki page. Small One-Eyed King says, she is the Melania of Hollow Knight. Onto our 7th spot, we have Isma and Ogrim from Pale Court, scoring 359 points, and securing their position as most loved Pale Court fight. Lowly Pooch 4186 says, duo bosses whose abilities synergize with each other are very high tier. This fight is where both bosses do crazy combos on you. Unlike Oro and Mato, where one of them is AFK for 5 seconds and the other is using a nail art. Speaking of ties, the next two bosses both had 371 points. The one with the least number of votes, and therefore in the 6th spot, is none other than the game's namesake, the Hollow Knight. Gomsgom2268 says, I think everything about this boss is perfect. Some people do think it's too easy, but it's definitely challenging on the first playthrough for many people. It's also very challenging during a speedrun, since you have to kill him quickly with no nail upgrades and use all soul on spells. The music is one of my favourite pieces from any video game. I love that moment when the Hollow Knight tries to help you in a fight and resist the Radiance, only for the Radiance to take even more control. Perfect fight, and it might be the top 5 in the game. Also, shout out to Yeeta Deleter 0117, who nailed its placement, saying it's their 6th favourite. Probably, I don't know. In 5th place, and the boss who came out on top by 135 votes, is of course Grim. The band name says, super fun fight, not too difficult, great payout, and prepares you for a much harder fight. In spot number 4, a boss I'm both surprised and happy to see doing this well is Mantis Lords. This is one of my personal favourite bosses in the game, so much so I had to check back and see if I made my poll sound too biased and affected the results. To my surprise, my post was pretty tame, and it seems you guys just agree that it's a banger of a boss fight. Littlerude217 says, first boss I struggled with in Hollow Knight and my favourite to this day. Boogeyman Gaming says, I love this fight, I even made the theme my ringtone. Now into our top 3 situation. What are the 3 most popular bosses in the entire game? Let's find out, shall we? In our number 3 position, and the boss that will be taking home the bronze medal, we have Nightmare King Grim with a whopping 385 points. Not only that, but Grim will be awarded the medal for highest percentage of S tier votes, with 90% of its votes being for the S tier. That shiny guy says, the best boss in Hollow Knight, and one of my favourite bosses in gaming, just behind things like Sans and the Ender Dragon. Moving on now to our runner-up of the entire list, and the boss taking home silver. It's none other than Pure Vessel, also with 385 points, but coming out on top with more total votes. Aurora says, literally peak video game boss design. Friend of Hatkid says, is just so chill and cool. His attacks are balanced around many different types of evading them, all depending on your strategy, build, and how much you love using spells. Just a super well designed fight. S. Well, if Pure Vessel isn't taking gold, then who is? I'll be honest, I did not expect the boss I'm about to announce to be the winner, but hey, you guys spoke and this was the outcome. With 389 out of a possible 400 points, and the boss who will take out the number 1 position as voted by you guys, we have the one, the only, Sisters of Battle. On top of their first place medal, Sisters of Battle also will be sharing the award for most S tier votes with Nightmare King Grim, which is just the cherry on top. With nearly a perfect score, it really did come down to the line here. With just a few percentage points shifted around, any of these 3 could have taken first place. Now let's take a look at some of the comments. Daybearadactyl says, Sisters of Battle is my personal favourite. Like, seriously. Anyone who says this fight doesn't make them feel like a total badass is lying. Green Gruz called it right with the following. This is the best boss in the game, closely followed by Pure Vessel, but still the flow, music, and difficulty make this boss amazing. And let's also appreciate how even the least popular bosses in this game are honestly still really fun to fight. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you're not sure what to watch next, maybe check out one of these videos on screen now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.